The teenage brothers had been driving home, borrowing their father's XR6 Ford Falcon. Police say their car left the esplanade at Warners Bay on the Lake Macquarie waterfront at 10 o'clock last night.
Fears he's lost control, possibly due to the wet, has mounted the western curb and collided with a tree.
16-year-old Alex Proctor wasn't wearing a seatbelt and was killed instantly. His brother Cameron, a P-plater, is recovering at the John Hunter Hospital with a broken collarbone. He's yet to speak with police, but they believe he'd been driving marginally over the 60k speed limit. Meanwhile, crash investigation officers believe wet weather also played a part in a separate fatal crash near Curry this morning. A 23-year-old Western man veered onto the wrong side of George Booth Drive and slammed into a tree. The impact tore open the driver's side of the vehicle. The victim died at Curry Hospital a short time after the accident. Police are trying to determine whether fatigue was a factor.
It doesn't appear to be any brake marks or anything like that, but no, we're not sure at this stage.
Police late this afternoon identified the victim as Benjamin Daly. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Tor Anderson hasn't been able to play golf for around a month due to the English floods, but he hardly comes to the PGA Futures cold. Winner of the equivalent tournament in Britain, the Dane was celebrating his birthday today and had one present in mind.
Yeah, I'm hoping to hoping to do quite well here this week. It's first time in Australia, so it'll be pretty tough, but see how we go.
Also teeing off for a members Pro-Am was another of the championship's 5 internationals, Randall McCracken. Winner of the US National Assistance title, McCracken has also never played in Australia before, but the Newcastle course almost feels like home.
It's very similar to the courses that I grew up playing as a junior player in Oregon, where I went to college at and where I played most of my junior golf. Very similar.
Similar maybe, but familiar to Hunter golfer Trent Berry. Second in the recent South Australian Trainee Championships, he'll be looking to use local knowledge to his advantage.
I'm pretty confident. Probably in the best form I've been in for the last 12 months or so. So yeah, I'm pretty confident I'll do well.
The tournament starts tomorrow morning. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Of a Sunday morning, you just can't see the sand here for members, so to provide good facilities for these children to grow up in a healthy environment and want to be around is absolutely essential these days.
Most new houses are now required by councils to attain a certain level of energy efficiency. Now Taree-based company New Tech Concrete Constructions has come up with a new way of building homes that easily reaches the maximum 5-star energy rating.
We put formwork up and we pour the concrete where the house is going to remain. We pour it all in one continuous pour.
Sandwiched inside the vertically cast concrete is a layer of polystyrene. The result is an energy-smart structure which not only costs less to heat and cool, but is super strong.
A very comfortable home, very safe home, won't burn down, won't fall down if there's an earthquake. Termites can't eat it.
Company director Stan Bryant began developing this technology in Taree around 10 years ago. Now he's set to take on the world, launching 4 new houses in East Maitland.
But to use this Blower Hunter as a platform to expand the use of the product.
The company has received $1.7 million in federal government funding to continue research and development of the technology. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Sometimes it seems the information superhighway via computers is limitless, but not everyone has access to this powerful resource. Certainly, business people in Singleton were starting to feel out of touch.
As we go out and we touch areas outside the Hunter, we found that people are already using this, so our region may be left behind, so we needed to bring it to our region.
A $137,000 federal government grant has resulted in the Singleton Information Technology and Training Telecentre, with Senator John Tierney doing the honours. The Telecentre will offer training for the local business people and the man off the street. It'll be conducted in small classes, providing access to the internet and teaching them about email, e-commerce and web design. Already a number of businesses have signed up.
Rotary, the Singleton Shire Council have been a great support and they'll be involved as well. And we've also got the major corporate industries such as the mining and power industries interested in coming in and looking at the broadband technologies.
Although most businesses are experienced with computers, especially with the introduction of the GST, their knowledge often stops there.
So they're familiar with using a computer, they're just not familiar with utilising the internet and the web and seeing how that would integrate into their business to increase their sales.
The centre will also encourage high school students to take up classes and start surfing the net. Catherine Turner, NBN News.
I think it's a vote of confidence by our shareholders in what Coal & Allied has done to lift the performance of Coal & Allied and its business in the Hunter Valley.
Battle-hardened waterfront workers rallied at Carrington today in support of the striking men at the steel tank and pipe plant who are facing the sack and the loss of their basic entitlements. It was an appreciative group of workers who greeted them at the picket line.
And these bastards that fraud and steal workers' money, well, it's just not good enough, and we've had enough. And I'll tell you now, we'll stand together for as long as it takes, till every cent's paid back to your families what's owed to you.
We stick together with them, and they've stuck together with us. And it'll just show these bosses and the government that we're not going to stand back and take any more shit.
The men have been picketing the factory for a week after being told by the administrator that if the plant closes, they are unlikely to be paid their entitlements. Today's rally strengthening their resolve.
We don't care if we're going to be another 3 months, 6 months. We're going to be here because we want what they owe us. And that's all it boils down to.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
By the late 50s, the aerodrome was starting to get smaller, the houses were creeping in on it, and of course then with the invent of television, the TV aerials went up on the boundaries, and people complaining about the noise. We just had to look for another aerodrome.
They packed the Club Macquarie at Argenton to see the Tip Top Tappers. While most members of the touring group of 12 dancers are aged in their 60s, they still have some of the best legs in the business. From old standards to a frisky Latin number, the group had the audience enthralled, all in the name of money for charity.
Somewhat drier conditions for round two saw some locals come out for a look. Trent Berry had a solid second round on his home course as well, but the 18th wasn't a popular haunt. He finished with a par round to be 4 over. Overseas players had a mixed day as well. South African trainee champion William Booth was 4 under for the day at one stage, but had to settle with picking up 2 shots for the day to be 3 over for the tournament. American Randall McCracken ended 2 over, while Englishman Tor Anderson's tournament is over altogether after carding a second round 80. Victorian Alan Patterson, though, is right in it. After carding successive 1 under par rounds, he's 2 shots off the pace at 2 under. That's where overnight leader Steve Krause finds himself as well. The Big Vic recovered from a second-hole triple bogey to card a 74. The ever-consistent Ian Edwards, though, is 4 under with another 2 under par round today. In fact, he could have had a share of the lead had this tee shot on the 16th sunk. Runner-up last year, Edwards finds himself in the same spot halfway through this year's tournament. The man they have to catch is Canberra's Mark Brooker. After an opening round 70, the New South Welshman fired a 3 under round 69 today to lead by a shot.
There are 4 nations left vying for the World Cup title. England will play New Zealand in Bolton on Sunday, and Australia will play Wales at Huddersfield at 4:45 a.m. Monday morning our time. Australia, of course, are unbackable odds to be in the final, and I think New Zealand will be too good for England. The ratings so far in the World Cup in England have been quite amazing. In one instance, Australia played Samoa in the quarterfinals. 3.2 million viewed were tuned into the BBC, while only 2 hours earlier, on a live telecast of the Wallabies v Scotland at Murrayfield only attracted 2.2 million viewers. Now that's great news for rugby league in the UK. The Australian players and officials have agreed to fine themselves for their involvement in the hair dyeing, moustache and beard growing activities in the World Cup. With the money that they've raised so far from their fines, they'll donate close to $6,000 to Teen Challenge charity. Mark Geyer has decided to hang up his boots this week. He's had a great rugby league career. He's played 3 tests for Australia, 3 State of Origins. He's won a grand final in 1991. He also has played 190 first-grade games. And whenever you played against him, he left a path of destruction as probably one of the most physically intense people that I've ever played against. Now, what do you say about the Save the South Sydney rally last Sunday? It was an overwhelming show of support. A lot of people from the Hunter Valley and New South Wales country went down. And while it's still a waiting game, you can't help but admire the way that these guys have fought on, and they've attracted so many rugby league supporters from all around the world, and I tell you, I'm certainly one of them. Anyway, that's it from me. Back to you, Rabs.
It was a mixed night for Chris Zoricic against the Cosmos. He gave away the penalty in the second half that led to the visitors' sole goal for the game. He looked to have made up for it though only minutes later, but his cracking header for goal was denied for what was deemed offside. And now he's in danger of missing the Adelaide match with a hamstring strain. Mark Wilson meanwhile needed 4 stitches for a cut to his knee, but he's thought to be fine to play. And striker Daniel McBreen has to prove his fitness, but is expected to return this weekend from his hamstring problem. The other concern for Newcastle is the lack of goals to star striker John Bonavolia. After belting home 16 last season, the pint-sized frontman is yet to hit one home in 6 games so far this season.
Johnny will hit the net sooner or later, and when he does, it'll continue from there, That's what happens with strikers,
As for the side, however, the first winners brought back some of the much-needed confidence the side will need as it faces 3 tough games, Adelaide and Perth away and Wollongong at home.
We needed something like that, as you say, to get us going.
Coach Sterry will name the side to play Adelaide on Wednesday. Jim Callanan, NBN News. Beating the Australian netball side is tough enough, but trying to get into the World Cup winning team is just as difficult. Ask Reagan Jackson. Vice-captain of the Sydney Swifts, the wing defender has reached national squad selection for the second time, but as yet not a starting spot.
Something that I've always sort of strived for, but I'm enjoying playing with the Swifts as well, and if it doesn't happen then I'm not too worried about it. I just enjoy playing and enjoy playing with the Swifts.
After starring for Australia B earlier this year, Reagan will play in an exhibition match for Australia in Vanuatu during December. Younger sister Kimberly, meanwhile, has only just returned from the National Championships to hit uni exams and find out she's in the National Under-21s.
Unbelievable. It was such a big surprise. I was playing up an age group, and just to be recognised at that level is just such a great feeling.
It's all happening quickly for the 18-year-old who'll start a full-time scholarship at the AIS next year and aim up for the Swifts alongside her sister in the National League.
As long as she doesn't come up and take me out of the spot, I'll be happy.
Meanwhile, Newcastle-based country rugby league coach Richard Jones has called it quits after 3 seasons at the helm. Given his increasing workload as general manager of the Westpac Rescue Helicopter, Jones decided to stand down.
The effect of the floods on the Hunter region was nowhere more evident than at the Hinton Bridge this morning, a massive gridlock of debris turning the Patterson River into a tree graveyard.
Never seen anything like that before, very unique.
SES crews spent the day keeping a close eye on the situation, with the Hunter River expected to peak at up to 8.9 metres at around 9 tonight. Volunteers also got in some invaluable floodboat training which they hope they won't have to use.
So we're really looking at a situation that has eased, but the situation hasn't passed.
The water level isn't expected to return to normal until the weekend, a show by Mother Nature which is already attracting plenty of spectators. The SES, as always, is urging caution.
The river is flowing quite quickly, so you need to exercise great care. If you've got children, please don't let them go near the river.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Closed down, I thought that was it, scrap.
Round 7 is fast approaching and players like Andy Harper and Damien Smith haven't even played a game for their new club. Others, like Asala Massey, won't be back for at least another month due to a knee injury, while fresh problems arise every week.
Daniel McBreen last week and now Zorro with hamstring trouble. It's just been a spate of them and something we've got to overcome.
Defender Chris Zoricic is the latest concern. The Kiwi stayed in Sydney today for treatment on a strained hamstring, but he'll have to prove his fitness tomorrow to be considered for the coming match. Daniel McBreen, meanwhile, has shown better improvement on his hamstring problem.
Yeah, sometimes it can feel really good at training, and then I go to the next session and it feels a little bit worse, but the way it looks now, it's looking pretty good for the weekend.
It's left coaching staff with a headache as well, with depth in key areas already stretched.
We're working with a bare minimum at the moment. We're probably short of strikers just right across the board, really.
The side to play Adelaide won't be named until tomorrow, but given the amount of injury problems, it's thought it may not be settled until much later in the week.
The military is often billed as action and adventure, but there's also plenty of pomp and ceremony thrown in. Today's was all about welcoming the Hawk lead-in fighter to the ranks of the RAAF. In all, 33 Hawks will be added to the Air Force, 21 of them assembled at BAE Systems plant at Williamtown. The project has created an estimated 500 jobs Australia-wide and sees the phasing out of the RAAF's ageing fighter trainer, the Mackie.
The technology jump from the Mackie to the Hawk is quite large, and that will make the transition from the Hawk to the F-111 and Hornet a much easier step.
But local federal member Bob Horn was airing concerns that the project won't run its course due to an impending defence review.
I'm concerned about all defence projects on the eve of the White Paper.
Something put to the Parliamentary Secretary for Defence.
In relation to what that might contain, you will understand that especially me as the Parliamentary Secretary won't be divulging anything that might be in that document.
You go down the line, you'll see number 33 aircraft frame already there. So, we're buying 33 and the 33rd one is already there.
The Hawks take their first trainee pilots in April. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
They may be a long way from home, but this group of talented dancers have little time to think about it. However, they seemed right at home today, performing segments of their high-speed dance at Newcastle's Irish pub, the Great Northern Hotel. Although some of the dancers are as young as 15, performing for the Keol Kiri Foundation is considered to be a full-time occupation.
I've taken a year out of school for the show, so it's kind of taken over, but I'll go back to school and I can finish up.
The show can be seen at the Civic Theatre this Saturday. Meanwhile, the theatre production of Les Miserables continues to impress audiences. However, today it was an audience of a different kind. More than $7,000 from the production's preview night last Thursday has been donated to the Children's Cancer Research and Support Unit at the John Hunter Hospital. Adam Harper, NBN News.
Vandalism attacks are becoming an all too familiar occurrence at Centennial Park. At around 9 o'clock last night, Newcastle Fire Brigade was called to the Cooks Hill Park to extinguish a fire, the second in 5 weeks.
I can't see why someone would want to do that, because it's all only people that's hurting is the children. I mean, what are they supposed to do now? They can't even play on it.
The first fire caused damage of around $13,000 to the plastic and metal structure. The toilet block was also burnt out. Newcastle Council has since decided to lock the toilets at night.
It's very upsetting. I mean, we come here most days and it's just disappointing to sort of have it time after time.
Residents living near the park are also concerned about other illegal activities happening in the park at night.
You wonder what's kind of mixed up in the grass and the bark and things like that. You know, I kind of worry about, needles and, other things.
Newcastle Council says it receives around 30 calls reporting mindless vandalism attacks in the city's parks each week. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
The position of striker hasn't been an enviable one at United this season, with injuries to Andy Harper, Asala Massey and Daniel McBreen. But that might be turning around, Lee Sterry rating McBreen as probably fit to play.
If he's available, that'll be certainly a shot in the arms of the rest of the team, I believe, because he did perform very well against Northern Spirit.
But it's Adelaide City that's of concern this weekend. The force is strong, having won 3 in a row, but then again Newcastle's players have a spring in their step after last week's win.
The confidence at training the last 2 nights has been just exceptional. Everyone's buzzing, so we're really looking forward to the Adelaide trip.
Who makes it is another matter. Lee Sterry today named a 16-man squad with 1 player to be omitted and the fitness of Chris Sorosic yet to be tested. Meanwhile, there's no doubts as to the new club's popularity, with United today announcing a merchandise store will open at the store on December 1.
The World Cup final will be held this Sunday morning at 1:45am our time at Old Trafford, and it's going to be a game to remember. Australia have always been unbackable favourites right from the start to take out the cup, but the New Zealanders' performance of recent games has been aggressive, in particular the drubbing of England last week, 49 points to 6. The New Zealand forwards, led by Stephen Kearney, have enough strike power to startle the Aussie pack with their distinctive, aggressive style, perfect for Test football. And Test football is a little different from your normal game. The tackles are a little higher, you get away with a little more, but if the New Zealanders have a high completion rate and the lion's share of possession, they could go close to putting their hands on the cup. The Australians have selected their side, and two key players in my mind are Gordon Tallis and Jason Stevens. These two blokes are the only guys in the Australian pack with the dynamic power and real strength to take apart the Kiwis, and in my mind, Jason Stevens should have been in the starting lineup along with Shane Webke in the starting front row. Now Girdler is out, McDougall comes from the bench into the centres, and there's one reserve to be omitted in the Australian side. Of course, Australia to win in a close one. Now, in a return to tradition, the International Rugby League Federation is proposing to classify all games from the 2000 World Cup as World Cup games, not tests. In 1995, World Cup games were classified for the first time as tests. However, following a meeting of the International Federation, they have supported a return to the traditional recognition of World Cup games, which is proposed to be sanctioned at a meeting earlier next year. Personally, I think it's a pretty good move. It's important for history's sake that there is consistency in recognising the achievements of all Kangaroos over the years. That's it for me. Back to you.
The Newcastle Maritime Museum has been based at Fort Scratchley for 21 years, but it wants to make a move. The proposed destination, Lee Wharf A at Honeysuckle, with the museum becoming a centre operating exhibitions, cruises, education programs and annual events.
Well, it'll be a quantum leap forward, most definitely, in that it will provide something for people from Newcastle, Sydney and throughout Australia to come and see.
While they have the building, organisers are still seeking state funds for the wharf and $1.3 million from the federal government to establish the centre. Museum officials and local politicians briefed Tourism Minister Jackie Kelly on the project this morning, but whether they get their wish won't be known until the announcement of a grants program in April.
It is a very competitive tendering process, and I am arm's length from it, but I can certainly make sure that my department is well aware of the absolute bipartisan support that this project has.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.